Pickles are so fun, and we have canned pickles, but then we also have fermented pickles. And I'm gonna call these a semi-fermented pickle. You guys are always asking me what I do with all my cucumbers, what kind of pickles I make. These are a family tradition. I'm not gonna call them a secret recipe. I'm sure there are many out there like this, but they are made in a crock. This is my family's pickle crock. And if you use an old crock, you always wanna know what was in it before, because if lard or something was ever stored in it, that can seep back out. So make sure you have a crock or buy a new one. In this crock, I have pickles or cucumbers that have soaked for 24 hours in a water and salt solution. That helps actually retain their crispness. It also brings out some of the bitterness that could be in them. I had them weighted down with a plate. This is the plate Grandma always used because it fit right in there, so guess what? It's the plate I always use too. These are called, I haven't even told you, these are called mustard pickles. It sounds bizarre, but okay, the more I think about it, I use mustard in a lot of things, so you know I'm obsessed. But these are a delicious pickle. They are slightly sweet, because yeah, there's definitely sugar in them. But then they also have like the spice of pickling spices, and it is so good. So I want to drain all this salt water off. It's done its work. We're gonna take it right over the sink. Yeah, crocks are heavy, so accordingly, you could also just pull them out if you needed to. We're gonna just put them right into the colander. Trying to make sure to get them all in there. Perfect. And then I want to rinse them off. You just want to get all that extra salt off. Just make sure that there's none remaining on it. Yes, I do love my sink. You guys ask me all the time. These attachments came with the sink. It's a Kohler sink. No ad by any means. I just love the sink. I got it because I am in the kitchen a lot and I use all these attachments, and I do. Okay, I have these rinsed off. While they are sitting here just draining out a bit, I'm gonna get the brine ready. I'm also at this point gonna just wipe out the inside of this crock. Sometimes they get foamy and they get a little bit of the residue or something from them, kind of gross. So I just make sure to wipe it out, give it a good rinse. Gonna bring it over. It's just like the holy grail. It's like the pickle crock. These are delicious. These are exciting to me. For the brine, I have vinegar, which very normal in pickles. To that, I'm gonna add a lot of mustard powder. Of course, they're called mustard pickles. Mustard powder is not, if you're someone that's like, I don't like a lot of mustard, it's not that mustard powder is extremely astringent mustard. It just has like a nice light flavor. And so don't be scared of the mustard powder. Let's just embrace the mustard powder and just trust the process. I think that's the important part here. Let's just trust the recipe. Then I'm also gonna add some sugar. Now, we're all scared of sugar. I get it. I try not to use sugar as much as I can. Since this is like a family recipe that we have done a long time, I don't mess with it. So I have not tried monk sugar. I have not tried stevia. I honestly don't know for sure if it would work well. You know, when it's a recipe you love, you just don't wanna mess with it. Now you can see it's gonna take a little bit of whisking to get some of that mustard powder dissolved, but I also wanna add a little bit of salt, not a ton here. They've been soaking in it, but you also rinsed a lot of it off. It doesn't go inside of them, so just a little bit of salt. Whisk that in. And then to finish it off and give it just kind of that unique flavor, pickling spice. You can actually buy pickling spice. You could make your own, but you can buy it. I love the smell. You get hints of clove, juniper berry, black pepper, bay leaves, a little bit of red pepper, coriander, mustard seeds. It's all in there, and instantly it just smells delicious and homey. My favorite memory of these pickles is around this time of year, if you would walk into Grandma's house, instantly you would smell that these were in the basement. And don't like freak out thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want my house to smell. It's not like an awful smell. It just, you get like a nice pickling smell. I'm gonna pull these pickles over now, and I wanna show you a little bit about these pickles. They're gonna be draining still. When I get ready to do these pickles, because I grow them, I am watching and I'm going out daily, still always missing some. Somehow it's like a zucchini. You go out there every day, the next day you go out, you have like a Pluto-sized one out there, and you're like, where did that come from? But I'm going out every day so I can find these nice pickles. I like them in the range from small to, this is the largest I would go. Because when we're done with these, we're gonna pack them into quart jars to keep them in the fridge. They're a fermented pickle, so you do not seal them. But you wanna make sure that you get nice bite-sized ones. So I even like small ones, and it's good to get a variety of small sizes because then as you're packing them in a jar, they fit better. Now, Grandma was always really good. Grandma would lay them in all the time, which I'm not as good as Grandma is. Probably because for some reason I don't have the patience she did. Hers was amazing. Any small job, she could spend whatever time was needed to make it perfect. I, on the other hand, I go too fast. As she would have said, I'm shit sick. I am. So I'm gonna put all these pickles in here and then we'll pour the brine on top. So I have all the pickles in there and I even kind of will shake this back and forth just to kind of work them in tighter and make sure. It's more you want to make sure they're going to be covered by the brine. So if you just kind of throw them in and they're haphazard really high, the brine may not cover them at first. So if you kind of just take a little bit of time, you're good to go. So our brine is ready, and that was extremely simple. And it smells already delicious. To me, it smells like home. It smells like mustard pickles, and I love that. And now we're just going to pour it on top. It sounds too easy, and it kind of is. Now, the reason I say this isn't a true fermented pickle is because fermented pickles only would have a solution, other than some spices, but of salt and water on them. And they would naturally ferment on their own. This is kind of a different one, and it came from Great Grandma originally. And I don't know the process and why it had vinegar instead, and I don't know why you necessarily still do it in a crock, but it does still ferment them. So I'm gonna say it's kind of like a hybrid model for fermenting. Now, there's pickles that are above the liquid. That's not good. That means that those could go bad or go sour or moldy even during the process. So to ensure that that doesn't happen, you take the plate, so you find one that fits in your crock. You can also get crock weights, but I fit it on top, I press it down, and you can see now that my brine wants to come on top of it. That's good, but since it's not quite there yet, what I'm gonna do is put something with some water on top of it, and that's gonna help weight it down. You just want something that's gonna weight it down and ensure that those pickles stay under the liquid. So it's the exact same process as if you were fermenting something. I'll fill this up, bring it over, and we'll make sure it's weighed down. I have water in here, and I think if I get this in here the right way, which I forget what way it is, but there is a right way and a wrong way, it will fit down in, perfect. And you can see it's pressing them down. They're underneath the liquid now. And now they just sit. That's the perfect part of this. You just want them to sit. So you're gonna check back in with me because this is now, from this point, an 8-day process. This is what you call like an 8-day pickle. Back then, especially in crock pickles, you would have different day pickles, 8-day, 9-day, 10-day, for how long they stayed in a crock. Every day, and don't squawk at me about this, every day we're gonna pull them out, we're gonna add some sugar, we're gonna stir it in, and we're gonna put them back. I know, it's not a purist, it's a delicious pickle. You will not regret making this, and you eat a couple. It's not like a lime pickle, those are even worse. So, hang tight, we'll come back. I like to just cover this up with a thin sheet or a cloth, just to make sure I don't know, if you have a fly in the house or something gets in, that way it just gives it a little bit of a barrier. So we'll come back on the process and we'll be making some delicious and fragrant mustard pickles. It's been a few days and I have been doing the same thing every day to these for the last few days. And as you can see, I just put a thin cloth over them, just a cotton cloth with a big rubber band, just to kind of make sure no bugs get in that could be flying around or just anything, which sounds gross, but you know, you just want to make sure it stays clean in there. So it's been smelling delicious, smells like pickles, smells like Grandma's house, I love that. I have this as a weight just on top of the plate that's down there, just to make sure that they stay fully covered with that brine, which is what the plate is doing too. So every day, it sounds like a process, but guys, you don't mess with Grandma's mustard pickles. This is the recipe. And so you do it like she does it. You go in, and I'm just using a big spider here, and I'm just pulling out the pickles, putting them into a bowl. You can tell already they're changing color. They're like I said, it's a hybrid of a fermented pickle and just like a vinegar brined pickle, which is kind of two different things. Usually a fermented pickle you would just do with kind of salt and water and let them ferment, maybe with some spices or something. But these have the vinegar in them. They definitely have the sugar too. So they're kind of like a mixture between the two. So it's a really different recipe. And it wasn't originally Grandma's recipe, I should say, it was her mom's, and I'm sure there were many other styles of it in there. So you see those pickling spices still kind of sticking to it. That's normal, don't worry about it. Because all we're doing here, and like I said, this is for 8 days. This is called an 8-day pickle. So for 8 days, every day, I'm taking out all the pickles like this, and I'm pouring in a little bit more sugar. Then I just make sure to stir it up, and I'm just taking a whisk. I am just going to mix all that sugar in there. That's why you don't keep the pickles in there. It'd be really hard to whisk in the sugar. Otherwise it would just sit on top or it would go down to the bottom, but it would not mix in. So I have all that mixed in. The sugar's in there. Like I said, it's easy. It just is, it takes what? 5 minutes out of your day? Guys, you can do this. Then we're gonna put it right back in. I like to make sure I get all those spices back in there. Pickling spices kind of have sometimes whole cloves in them. They have the peppercorns, and I just want to make sure they get all back in there because while they're in there, they're doing some work, they're flavoring it. And then I just take my hand, I make sure to press the pickles kind of back down. You can tell that the liquid actually has really grown. One, because the sugar added, but also it pulls some of the moisture just a little bit out of the pickles too. So you can see so much more brine, much easier to work with. Smells, I mean, it just smells good. These are a delicious pickle. And I'm gonna add everything back in. Just my weight, which you can use a jar with water, whatever you need. And at this point, I hardly even need weight, but I'm gonna do it just to be safe. So this is the last day for this. Next, you're gonna see that I can just put them in jars. These you have to keep in the fridge. So they're not gonna be canned and processed. They're different since they're kind of a more fermented pickle. So we'll come back, we'll finish up, we'll all enjoy some good pickles. Hang tight. So you have gone through this whole process with me. We clean the pickles, we soak the pickles, we put them in the crock with a mixture of a brine, and then every day, don't get all sugar happy on me. Yes, every day we added some sugar. It is Grandma's recipe, and if you have a problem, you can take it up with your grandma because all grandmas unite, okay? You saw me do all that, and as you can see, I'd been covering it every day just so, you know, you never know. Are you gonna have a little bug come in, fly in? That's kind of gross, you don't want to. And I weighted down that plate just so, I want you guys to really see this. I weighted that down to make sure the liquid was always completely covering the pickles. Because if it wasn't, you can have a pickle go bad. That's when you could get something kind of gross, which you don't want. This is the pickle plate, you guys. This is the plate that fits in the crock that covers the pickles and it stays together. If it breaks, I will cry. But if you know me in antiques, I'd find another one. At this point, you could let them sit in there for up to a month, up to 2 months. I think Grandma once told me that she kind of let them go until Thanksgiving almost 1 year. And the reason is because they are safely in that liquid. Now, I sometimes will even at this point taste one because one, they're my favorite pickle. Like instantly nostalgic, delicious, I love them. I wouldn't say just like mustardy, but you get like the tanginess, the sweetness, the pickling spices. I love them. You can put this in any jar any way you want to seal it. You do not can these. Since they're kind of that hybrid fermented, you don't can them, you put them in a jar, airtight, in the fridge. So they do take a little bit of fridge space, but believe me, these are worth it. At Grandma's, we used to always all go, and she'd be like, go grab a jar of pickles. And so we go to the basement fridge and get them. So you just want to take these out. And honestly, this is kind of the easy part. You just are gonna put them in a jar. You can kind of try to be careful. Sometimes I'm really good with it, sometimes I'm not. And it doesn't really matter. Like, I try to get as many in a jar as I can just because why wouldn't you try to like fit them in there nicely? So I'm gonna fill up this jar. We're gonna talk about the brine. And then we're just gonna be pickle happy because pickles make you happy. So come back, we'll finish up. You can also just use regular canning jars. Grandma would always put them in the antique blue canning jars. Why? I don't know, probably because we didn't like to can in those anymore. So I'm straining out those pickling spices just because they're not really, you know, they've done their work. They're not really fun to eat, so you don't really want to get to one, but you do want these still covered with liquid. So I'm straining out that liquid right on top. Look at that beauty. Look at that wonderful, delicious, it smells so good. I can just tell you that. It smells just wonderful. These are my favorite pickle. That is all you do. Cover them up, airtight, into the fridge. You have pickles, these will last, guys, they will last at least a year in your fridge, covered in brine. They're delicious. I hope you try these pickles. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit unique. If it's too late for next year, you can do it. No, I'm sorry, that's not a backwards. If it's too late for this year, do it next year. Totally doable. This recipe works forever. Tested and approved by Grandma. So share this recipe around. Tell me what you think. Tell me how much you love it because it's delicious and I can't wait to see how you make it. I love to hear from you. So I'm gonna keep doing these. I'm gonna keep jarring them up. Go out, have a pickle. Just like eat one if you want to, because I'm gonna probably eat half of these, so.